flowery, nutty, and my personal favorite, robust. Those are just a few of the ways I've been described. Some find compliments for a coffee bean that spends most of its days lazing in the sun, people watching. During my youth, I was often called a sweet cherry. Actually, a more accurate characterization than I'd get later, given that I'm a fruit, not a bean at all. My life began on a serene Balinese plantation, where people tending to my orchard would often come around to caress me, sniff me, mutter a few of those sweet nothings in a low mellifluous voice, and check my health. This tender upbringing may seem a little incongruous, given my life ended after I'd been crushed into aromatic pieces, left at the bottom of a hot porcelain onsen. But it all makes sense when you learn what happened along the way. After those easy first years, I became quite the thrill seeker. I was yanked from my tree, buried on a bamboo tray, launched into a drying machine, roasted in a drum, and pounded into a fine powder. It wasn't all excitement though. I also met lots of nice people, the barista who nurtured my growth, the farmer who picked me, the women who sorted me and my family, and finally, the person who enjoyed the cup of coffee I helped make. This is my story. It's also the story of the people who brought me into the world and helped my flavor shine.
How far could I go? Spread my wings, I could fly. Our lives, they unfold, rising up, soaring high. I put my hands to the skies, my dreams, they come alive. Yeah, my dreams, they come alive, and I pray. I run to the wind and I jump through the fire. Yeah, I jump through the fire, yes I can. Oh, oh. Yes, I can.
It all began on a misty morning at the Manduk Organic Coffee Plantation in the gentle rolling hills of northern Bali. Far away from the island's hustle and bustle, sunny beaches, and rattling nightclubs with their nauseating strobe lights. I shared my 12-acre home with around 1,500 kilograms of family members, a mixture of Arabica and Robusta beans who resided in approximately 6,500 trees. The initial years of my life were fairly uneventful. As an Arabica bean, I'd have to wait for 3 or 4 years to leave the tree, though my Robusta cousins might leave between 2 and 3 years. I rarely interacted with humans, except for the friendly, charismatic neighborhood barista who not only knew how to make just about every coffee-based drink, but also monitored us beans as we prepared for our date with onsen destiny. He visited most mornings to give me my daily dose of affection and the occasional sniff. On some days, he simply passed through the plantation with his bamboo basket and tools, ready to whisk a few ready beans away to various adventures. We'll get to that. As I waited, I daydreamed of tales passed down over the generations from my ancestors about a far-off land on the other side of Mindo, a place they called the resort and spa, where we could escape our daily life and see some truly fantastic things. I can almost see it now, just past the billowing plumes of smoke drifting from joss sticks at the small shrine place there. This wet and wild place is a site of many activities for both thalassic humans and coffee beans. The humans soak for hours in something called a pool whilst indulging in snacks.
Vamos a bailar. La, 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 la. Vamos a bailar.
Especially lucky ones take their morning swim with a floating breakfast, a sort of scenic cruise for coffee alongside mouth-watering dishes and beautiful rose petals. Some humans even seem to possess the ability to walk on water, balancing over a cascading waterfall at the edge of the known world, or at least the world known to me. The people who hang around this area are very artistically inclined too. They serenade each other with music and even leap to their heart's content with their traditional dance. Other small collectibles such as photo frames, candles, bracelets, and straws from recycled materials with delicate imperceptible strokes. And of course, they often discover new uses for coffee beans. They send beans leaping around a giant metal swing they call a wok, its flames playfully lick up from below, dancing to an extensive repertoire of music made by banging spatulas. They balance us as toppings on croissants in a fancy boulangerie. They also bring beans to the spa for a treatment named coffee therapy for beauty, transforming us into the fundamental ingredient in a body scrub. As you may know, we coffee beans contain antioxidants that tenderize human skin and rid it of impurities, helping people relax. for a 4-hour aromatherapy massage complete with a beautifying facial, manicure, and pedicure. Even stranger than any of this, ancestors have told of a mystical orange creature they encountered here called Sparky. Unlike the humans, it always seems to be in convivial spirits regardless of the time of day or occasion. Suddenly, I was jolted from my daydream by a sudden earthquake, leaving me momentarily flummoxed and speechless. Wait, hang on! It was the barista, along with his friend the farmer, doing much more than the usual cuddle and sniff. They were yanking my neighbors off branches. Then it dawned on me. This was the day I departed on an expedition of my own. It must have been sometime between July and September when the barista and farmer made their rounds collecting the beans that were ready. That was the last thought that crossed my mind as the barista, armed with the hoe, grabbed me firmly by my waist and tugged me off my tree before flinging me into his basket. As they transported us, I couldn't see my surroundings beyond the bamboo walls. But if I could have caught a glimpse, I would have seen rows upon rows of coffee trees scattered across the lands. I'd see an army of farmers replicating the harvesting process, working amongst the musky smell of damp soil that the light early morning drizzle had brought. Each of them carried a full basket of coffee beans on their backs as they made their way towards the processing facility, like ants headed back to their nests with valuable loot. Before long, the farmer who had harvested me began gesturing and speaking energetically. Suddenly, he took off on foot. He had caught sight of a luwak, also known as the Asian palm civet. Although some coffee plantations and cafes breed civets in captivity, force-feeding them cherries under questionable living conditions, the handful of civets who live around Manduk are out in the wild. The creature is hard to come by during the day, hiding in the shadows due to its poor eyesight, only emerging at night. This makes infrequent daytime sightings a special event amongst excitable humans. Young coffee beans feared the civet since it would hunt for juvenile cherries to eat. But in reality, we're nothing to fear. After being consumed, cherries pass through the luwak's intestines and out at the other end, a process that strangely excites humans. They claim the digestive tract of the animal alters the composition of the cherries, allowing those coffee beans to produce sweeter and more precious cups of coffee. After a brief diversion chasing the civet, we arrived at the processing facility to suntan, or as the humans called it, dry, which they say preserves our quality. The farmers then separated us into 4 batches, sorted by the treatments we would undergo while drying, which helped us produce a variety of flavors of coffee. The first option was the natural process, which was straightforward enough. The farmers brought us to a makeshift outdoor hammock consisting of wooden posts and netting where we were spread evenly. Depending on the weather, natural drying could be as quick as 9 days or as long as 3 weeks. This is especially tricky during the heavy rains of the monsoon months when excess humidity can cause uncontrolled fermentation, resulting in undesirable flavors. The farmers constantly break this back and forth to avoid anyone growing mold. The natural process yields a slightly sweet, tropical fruitiness. As I dried naturally, another group underwent the washed process, which began with a flow test to determine density. Those who passed were depulped mechanically, removing all fruit flesh before being fermented in a water tank for 18 to 72 hours, ensuring any residual mucilage was broken down. They were then laid on a brick patio or raised bed to tan for 60 to 90 days. This process yields a flavor profile with a touch of chocolate and a tinge of berries with a clean aftertaste due to fermentation. Those destined for the honey process also met the depulping machine, but the layer beneath their flesh, a thick gooey mucilage, was left intact. Drying with this layer produces notes of honey in coffee blended with the taste of caramel. Those going for the wet hull process were also depulped and left with their mucilage to keep them moist. They were then stored in a thick plastic tank where the mucilage began to form a thick husk around them. As the farmers removed them from the tank, they removed the husk in a process known as hulling before the beans got a final suntan. This results in the cleanest of flavors, a touch chocolatey and nutty, with hints of brown sugar and tropical sweetness. After being unceremoniously toppled into a sack, we proceeded to skydive into a huge drying machine for a second round of drying. The farmers scooped us into a funnel and we landed on top of each other in a heap inside the machine, crackling with excitement. As it rattled to life, the heat rose to a consistent 40 to 42 degrees Celsius, which combined with constant airflow kept our moisture levels between 11 and 12%. Just when we felt we couldn't take much more, the machine belched us out onto a slide, which flung us in a seemingly never-ending waterfall of coffee beans into another sack at the opposite end. From the drying machine, we were taken to a table of chatty and cheery women who gossiped as they sorted us by size, color, and quality, depending on how much we had broken during the process so far. Some of the women do this for 4 months a year, depending on the season, each one sorting about 40 or 50 kilograms per session. Chatting with friends while playing with coffee beans? Not a bad way to earn a living, if you ask me. All the while, a steady stream of farmers arrived from other plantations and a few backyard farms on motorcycles, sometimes expertly balancing the weight of children and sacks of our distant relatives on their bikes. They each spent a few minutes concluding deals with the barista, selling their harvest to Manduk for processing. At this point, I'd have enough chatting. It was sauna time, or roasting time as the humans called it. Manduk roasts its beans in 2 ways, drum roasting and pan roasting. The drum seemed more like a huge heated Ferris wheel to me, though the ride gave us an extreme sunburn in the process. Our faces were slightly green as we entered the coffee drum due to the moisture we still carried after drying. After a few minutes of roasting though, we started to turn a light brown as the sugars within us began to break down. At this stage, An alluring and slightly smoky aroma began to waft out of the roasting drum as we ripened. The exact temperature of the roast depends on the profile the baristas want to create. City roast 200 to 210 Celsius, full city roast 210 to 235, Vienna roast 235 to 240, French or Italian roast 245 to 265, or Spanish roast 270 to 275. The details of the roasting are crucial. If we are over-roasted, we turn acidic, and if the temperature is too hot, the sugars within us will over-caramelize. This is where the skills and experience of each barista really shine. On the other hand, there's pan roasting, which is the traditional way but can be pretty unpredictable. Beans are spread evenly in a cast iron pan and placed over a charcoal fire. But it's difficult to control the temperature precisely, often resulting in an uneven roast, not to mention the immense smoke wheat coffee beans can produce. Despite the perils, if people tediously stir us with the garret for hours on end to help us roast evenly, they're rewarded with the unmistakable aroma of freshly roasted coffee. This is where my tale comes to an end, in a piping hot, robust cup of coffee. The barista mercilessly pounded me into a fine powder and passed me through a sieve to a piping hot porcelain onsen. I could have just as easily ended up in a flat white, cappuccino, mocha, or latte, complete with steamed milk art. You name it, and the barista has probably made it, probably with the occasional classic faux pas. Don't pity this ending for me. I lived my life with no regrets. I traveled across Bali through the stories of my friends, met a civet who enjoys the company of coffee beans more than most creatures, made friends with the farmers and bean sorters, and was showered with affection throughout my growth.
I searched the whole world.
If there was one thing I could tell the humans if they could hear me, it would be this. The better my life is, the more thought and energy the baristas put into my development, drying, sorting, roasting, and preparation, the better your cup of coffee is too.
I searched the whole world, the dark corner, every part.
Take home your very own Sparky. Follow us on our Instagram and YouTube channel for more exciting adventures.